Give you a brief update. Heritage is on the road, as some of you may have seen. We're working with Heritage Action for a 9-city defund Obamacare tour. Sorry. And last night kicked off in Fayetteville, Arkansas, in a barn of all places, to a packed house of 350 people. And tonight we're expecting hopefully over 2,000 in Dallas, Texas, to see Senator Ted Cruz as well. It'll be going on to Tampa, Florida, making a stop in Birmingham, Alabama, and Nashville, Tennessee. And then next week it'll take a northern loop, Pittsburgh, Columbus, Ohio, Philadelphia area, and Indianapolis. So very excited to do it. If you see things out there, we're encouraging a lot of people to tweet photos and send updates from the road. So anyways, it's been an exciting and busy August, perhaps busier than Augusts normally are. I'm going to turn it over to Ericka Andersen now. Ericka is our senior digital media associate here. She's also the one who manages all of our social media content, and she's been an inspiration for some cool and innovative ideas that we've executed recently, including one this morning in today's Morning Bell. I think she has some examples that she's going to show. So whether it's defunding Obamacare, federal spending, you name it, we're trying to come up with creative ways to package that content and pitch it to the audience, whether it's an audience that might be on Facebook, Twitter, email, you name it. We're trying to try to reach them in different ways. So Ericka's helped assemble this great panel, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say, and then look forward to answering all of your questions later. So Ericka, with that, over to you.
Sure. Well, everything that I pulled up somehow isn't there anymore. So
Nice.
No,
It's right there.
Where?
Just
Oh, okay. I was like, where
Technology.
did it go? I'm
this is
very
the problem with Internet
confused.
Explorer.
All right. Anyways, sorry about that. I wanted to tell you guys about, in addition to the Stop Obamacare website that Rob just mentioned, we're also doing a hashtag Stop Obamacare Instagram campaign. So this can go for Twitter too, but we're just encouraging people to, hold up a sign, hold up a piece of paper that says Stop Obamacare, upload it to Instagram, put it on Twitter. Just, you see these different campaigns doing this, so we just are trying to kind of spread the love on that, and so far we've gotten a lot of good entries. Darrell Issa has entered twice now, thanks to Justin's help. So you check out some of those, and there's a little bit more information about it on the Foundry. So I wanted to start the panel with one of my favorite viral videos from last year. I'm sure you've all seen it, but I'm going to go ahead and show it anyways, just to kick us off. And I'll work through it, please.
I'm tired of Barack Obama and Mitt Romney.
That's why you're crying? Oh, it'll be over soon, Abby. Okay? The election will be over soon, okay? Oh.
So yeah, when I saw the last year, I was just like, that's exactly how I feel. So I totally understand how why this little girl is crying, and I'm sure we'll be feeling the same way again next year. So with that, I will go ahead and introduce our panelists. First up, we have Keira Davis. She's come all the way from California to be with us today, so we're excited that she's here.
The left coast.
She's a writer and blogger at the Independent Journal Review, as well as her own website, KeiraDavis.net. She hosts an online radio show, The Dark Side with Keira Davis, and she recently appeared on Hannity to speak on the issue of Black conservatives, and also appeared on a Google Plus Hangout with the President earlier this year. Her video, An Apology to President Karzai, went viral last year, and she continues to see success with her personal videos since then, so she's going to be talking about a wide range of things. Next up, we have Francesca Chambers. She's the editor and publisher of Red Alert Politics, an online news publication written by young conservatives for conservatives. She formerly worked as a new media manager at the Leadership Institute and on Capitol Hill. Next up, Justin LoFranco. Justin is the digital director for Congressman Darrell Issa and the House Oversight Committee. Issa won the Congressional New Media Challenge this year, and his social media presence is always creative and extremely personal. Justin is a big part of making that happen, and because of that, Issa has become as one of the most known and well-liked members of Congress. And lastly, we have Benny Johnson, the viral politics editor at BuzzFeed. He is formerly with The Blaze and Accuracy in Media, and also a former Heritage intern. So, We're always happy to have him back. So we're going to cover, we basically just want these guys to kind of spill their secrets to us today. So I'm going to start off by asking each of you to give an example, could be the most well-known example that you have, of something of yours that has done well and why you think it did so well. And then I'm going to jump into some questions, and then we're going to take questions from the audience. So if you want to get us started.
Well, that video you mentioned, the apology to President Karzai, has currently about 1.5 million hits on it. And I think that video in particular did well because it appealed to people of all political stripes. It wasn't too partisan. But the one I do want to mention that that Amy earlier had said she was so excited about was the Second Amendment video I did. And I told the story about how I used to be very anti-gun. I'm Canadian by birth, so we don't really think very highly of Americans and their guns. And that's kind of how I was raised. And changed my mind on that. And so after the Sandy Hook shooting, I just did a little video of me in the webcam. You know, this is, I used to think that guns were bad and evil, and now I'm pro Second Amendment, and this is why. And that video has about 500,000 hits on it right now. And I think the reason why that one did well is because I told a story, and that is what most people will respond to, stories. And I think you'll probably hear me say that word a lot today, but I think people are more apt to listen to what you have to say if it's personal, you know? Especially here on Capitol Hill, we're always talking about policy and, you know, and legislation, but that's kind of boring for people who aren't living in Washington, D.C., which is pretty much everybody in the country. So people want to hear your stories, and that you can take the policy and apply it to your life like I did. I took the policy of the Second Amendment, the policy of banning guns, and said, look, you can't ban evil. You can ban guns, but you can't ban evil. Here's why. And I think people responded to that personal story of how my life changed because of a couple of events in my life that made me see the Second Amendment differently. So I think it was the story, just to repeat, the story that really pushed that particular video, and a lot of mine as well.
Well, my big question is, after that, did you have to renounce your Canadian citizenship?
I've actually been American for quite a while now, so I probably can't go back.
Oh my God, you're just like Ted Cruz.
You got my joke.
I really can't run for president, though.
Well, we have a...
I renounced my citizenship before it was cool. You're like the hipster Canadian citizen.
My family's very ashamed of me, but we'll talk about that later.
One really good example of content that we had that did really well was we did this post on 10 things that are more likely to succeed than Obamacare. And it wasn't really policy-based in nature. We didn't go into all the details, I think, of why Obamacare we thought was going to fail, because I feel like we've hammered on that a lot at Red Alert. I swear to goodness, every day. There's probably a post that explains why Obamacare is terrible, if not 2 or 3. And so we wanted to do something that would maybe get a little bit more attention from perhaps young people who don't want to read about all the policy, or they're getting really great policy stuff from Heritage and other places. So we wanted to do something that would maybe be a little bit eye-catching and perhaps go viral and make some young people who haven't looked into Obamacare or read about Obamacare start doing that. And so, of course, in the list, which we had a great time with in our office coming up with all these things, you know, we had Chevrolet, you know, for Avril Lavigne's new marriage. We had Miley Cyrus with like a gif of her twerking, you know, and like we trying to think of like what else was on the specific list, but you get the idea. And it really was really fun, and I think that was part of the reason why it did so well, is because we had fun making it, and so people had fun reading it. And I mean, it really exploded across the internet, and I think that's key. If you're not having fun doing it, then people probably aren't having fun reading it.
I'm gonna write that down.
Have fun.
Justin, you're up.
I'm seriously writing it down.
Yes.
He's actually writing that down. I forgot.
Okay, when's he going to stop writing it down?
Yeah. I can
No.
He's done.
Hey,
He's writing it in Latin.
I'll do my binary. So 2-minute spiel on what I think you should most focus on. I don't know how many of you, I usually speak to Hill folks. This is slightly more broad and a little bit more awesome at the same time. If you guys are brand managers, I'm assuming you have a role in what your brand says online, whether it be an organization, like something like Heritage, or if it's a member of Congress, or if it's an individual or a candidate or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. You cannot, and thank you for pointing this out, you cannot beat personal touch. Okay? You will never post enough great things in this world if it doesn't include the person behind your brand. It will never be successful. And stop swinging for the fence. That's my personal opinion. Other people will say something different. If you're trying to go viral with everything you do, you're never going to go viral. Okay? Audiences choose what is successful. Okay? If you're going to try and hit a home run with everything you do and get 500,000 views or get 1 million views or get to the front page of YouTube because it's so awesome, probably not going to happen. But if you constantly focus on hitting singles every day, hitting singles, hitting doubles, your audience will grow. If you're thinking of new things that you think that your audience will like, it will continue to grow, and you will be successful. Listen to what people are saying. I read every single tweet that is tweeted at Darrell Issa every single day. I can tell you there are over 2,500 of them every single day. That doesn't include retweets. Thank God. So
Psychiatrist use.
that is a lot. But you should be paying attention to what people are saying to you because they're going to give you feedback. Positive, if you're a member of Congress, maybe negative, maybe really negative. But pay attention to it. Last but not least, give them something they're going to remember. There are a lot of press releases out there. There's a lot of latent breaking news. You are competing against other news outlets for people's attention. Remember that. If you are going to be a news creator, if you're going to actually, say something to them, you want them to pay attention to you. You have small windows and small opportunities to communicate with folks. You guys are here by choice. You're not somewhere else. Thank you, first of all. Second of all, I have you for a very small window. You have your Twitter followers or your Facebook people for a very small window of time, and you're competing with them against Fox News, against Drudge, other conservative outlets, Heritage, Red Alert. You're competing for their time. Give them something worth reading. Don't put up your press releases. If you are, make it maybe a little bit more interesting. Try and translate that down for them, and give them something personal and memorable. Friday Kitty. Who knows what Friday Kitty is? What? Thank you, Friday Kitty. Okay. Friday Kitty is the Stop Obamacare from last week, which is a photo of a very, very grumpy, orange-haired cat who was telling all the reasons why he wanted to stop Obamacare. He found out what was in it. It was terrible. And that was Darrell Issa's Friday Kitty for the week. Every week, Darrell Issa posts a photo of a cat. He's called Friday Kitty. And that's his name. And these
He also
different
does Throwback Thursdays.
Throwback Thursdays, yes. But that actually has the photo of the congressman. The cat is just a cat. But there's a point to that whole thing, and it's very memorable. Well, obviously not when I polled the audience, but we'll get you guys there. Now you guys know what Friday Kitty is. You'll be expecting this on Friday because you're going to go to Darrell Issa and you go, I wonder what cat he's going to post this week. There you go. That's my 3.5-minute spiel on everything you should be doing.
We also read all of our tweets at Red Alert, which are thousands upon thousands,
That's a
but
lot.
we read them all because people sometimes have questions about the work, about sourcing, about things like that. And so, yeah, we read all of ours and we respond to them if it's a legitimate question, not like, why do you suck? We don't respond to those. We just ignore those. But we also try to retweet people who send us, make funny jokes or send us good information as well.
That's right. I found a lot of people like being recognized. They like being engaged with. They really do like it. If you retweet them, they're very appreciative. You're really grabbing that person for life. You're converting them to your brand when you do that. When you refollow that, when you follow them back, if you answer their question, you are giving validity to their concern or their comment. You are telling them that you are focused and listening, and they do respond to that. If you're trying to create and convert followers for life, that is an extremely good way of doing it.
Makes their day.
It does.
They often write back and say, "Oh my gosh, Red Alert retweeted me. My day is made."
Yeah.
You know.
Darrell Issa, follow me.
Yeah, I would just jump in real quick and say same thing with us. Like once I took over the Heritage Twitter feed, I said, I'm going to own this, and so that means reading all the tweets, and that means doing a lot of retweeting and doing a lot of engaging, and the same goes just exactly what they said. And I feel like I know a lot of people here or online work for organizations, and I don't see a lot of organizations doing that at all. They're just like, Twitter, another thing, check. Well, I mean, this may be obvious, but once we started really pushing the engagement, I saw a great improvement. And so anyways, that's just something to consider. I'll move on to then.
Okay, hi. Thanks, guys, for coming out. Everyone here, especially since I know you all, and a lot of you drink at my house regularly, and I'm wondering why on earth you came here to see me when you hear me blabber on in my living room all the time. I work for BuzzFeed. I'm their viral politics editor, and typical BuzzFeed fashion, I can't talk or do anything or function at all during the day without my memes. So let's get started. This is I'll give you like the quick opening segment to a presentation I like to give around town. About viral politics, about what we're doing. So, first question. What would the internet do with this photo today? Who is this, by the way?
Michael Dukakis.
Okay, what was he doing here?
What was he doing?
That looks like a huge gun.
I was still Canadian.
Back history lesson. We're at Heritage, this would work.
This was the year I was born.
Riding in a tank, running for president, right? He was running for president, he had this photo taken to make him a little bit more machismo for the American public. I would argue that the internet would do this with this photo today and make it into one of the best memes that we've ever seen for politics. Because that's kind of what the internet does. The internet's here to bring politicians down a little level and make them a little more relatable. And what's crazy is that organizations and think tanks and multi-million-dollar conglomerates don't do this. Normal, average American citizens make these kind of things. The reason I can say this with such certainty is because we've seen this already happen in a common day era where the internet got a hold of this photo and then turned it into this. And all these. So we were covering this at BuzzFeed, and it was Sunday, and I was saying, oh my God, the president just gave us the internet one of the greatest photos, in the modern internet age of him skeet shooting. And so I just sat there Sunday and just took meme after meme after meme and put it into a post. And we did a post of what happens when Obama releases a gun to the internet. Oh my God. Next thought process. Next thought lesson here. Which one of these headlines is real? Congressman accuses former vice presidential candidate of being Batman. Defense hawk senator threatens Pentagon with Millennium Falcon. Ginger congressman publicly compares himself to Red Squirrel. Committee chairman pits self against party leadership with gif of smiling rabbit.
Millennium Falcon.
Which one?
All of them.
Millennium.
Which one?
The
Millennium Falcon? You must know Tom Coburn. Of course, the fun answer is that all of them are real. Like, all of these things have actually happened. There's Tom Graves comparing himself to saying Paul Ryan is Batman. Here's Tom Coburn tweeting a picture of the Millennium Falcon. Here's poor James Langford comparing himself to a red squirrel. And here's Darrell Issa, thank you very much, tweeting out the picture of the smiling rabbit gif that we asked everyone to tweet out. And tweeting it at Eric Cantor. It's like, come on, I challenge you to do this. So what do all these things illustrate? This is my thesis. This is my thesis. Is that media is slow when it comes to the internet. That media hasn't necessarily adapted the way that they historically should have adapted. If you think about the great advances in communications, printing, radio, television, I mean that the media was the tip of the spear in all of those. They were pushing all of these things into the mediums. Sometimes it was just news that you could get on the TV. I mean that's how the TV started, is simply news. So the media historically has taken technology and used it to their advantage as a medium to reach more people and discuss the topics of the day. And I would argue that for some reason on the internet, media just hasn't adapted quickly or historically enough, and probably because it's a medium that they don't necessarily own or they didn't necessarily start. But there is a whole world of people that are going to communicate the same way that our great-grandparents only read, and our grandparents only listened to radio, and our parents only watched TV. Our generation is going to be the generation that only does the internet, in my opinion. And so we have to learn how, if you're a reporter or if you're a communication person or if you work in Congress, you have to learn to meet these people where they all are, which is the internet, and communicate in a way that the internet likes to be spoken to. So that's my thesis. That's why we at BuzzFeed are, kind of doing a lot of silly posts and trying to, mess with this, this laboratory that we like to call the internet and see what works and what doesn't. And for all the naysayers out there who says, oh, you're just the cat site, I would say yes, thank you.
My friend Emily Zanotti over at Naked DC says, if you can't tell your story in a funny cat picture, then you're losing. She swears by funny. The Republican Party needs to figure out how to tell every story they want to tell in a funny cat picture. And we'll probably be sweeping elections.
So there we go. That's my little spiel.
Sorry guys, I'm trying to find the thing I want to pull up. Okay. So to move on to questions for everybody, I have a great question to follow up with this. Just talking about something that Heritage tried to do lately, which is we posted our own BuzzFeed article, and it did extremely well. It went crazy and got picked up by other media, and I mean now we're one of the top 10 outside community contributors at BuzzFeed because we got so many page views on this. So it was a lot of fun to put together, and we were doing just what Benny was saying. But the question I have for these guys is it the quality of the content or the quality of how you package the content, or both? And what kind of distinctions would you make with that? And anyone can answer this.
I'll start because these guys are all quality, and I'm just a stay-at-home mom with a webcam. And so I will say, if you have...
Very dangerous.
If you have...
This is Heritage.
Right.
In some respects, and I'm sure all these guys are going to talk about, how they add quality to their content. But for me, somebody told me, don't be worried about how fancy your stuff looks. If you have a great camera or your green screen, hit record and talk and something great may happen, and that's what I did. Now, I think for me, why people respond to me is because I tell stories. I always know who I'm talking to. If you watch it in my YouTube channel, I got a lot of videos on there. I'm always talking to myself 10 years ago when I was a liberal. And no matter what I do, that's the person I'm imagining. And so you're not going to hear me be real angry a lot. You hear me explaining things a lot. But for me and for what I do, quality is not what has propelled me. As a matter of fact, the more fancy I try to get with my videos, the worse they do. People like me in my mom uniform, no makeup, ratty sweatshirt, yoga pants. Those videos go viral. I don't know, when I'm looking all nice, I got my makeup on, nobody wants to watch that stuff. But I think what comes through, at least again for me, is the passion. I never talk about anything that I'm not passionate about. Luckily, I'm passionate about a lot of things, so I have a lot of stuff to talk about.
You can actually pull up the PowerPoint. This actually plays into, this works out, because this plays into what you were talking about. Which, by the way, talking about getting too fancy, I had a really cool font on here, and it's totally not showing up now. So don't get too fancy because of the Mac. Yeah, exactly, because the next thing you know, your font will look really stupid and boring. Okay, yes. I couldn't find a picture of a box, so kittens. You can go on to the next slide.
Oh my gosh.
I just love that gif, though. It's so good.
A gif of exploding kittens?
Of an exploding box, of an exploding box, so kittens. So I think going back to what Benny was saying about this being the internet generation is that it may seem really obvious that if you're going to start a new publication, it would be an online only publication. Or a blog, or that's how you're going to go about it. But you'd be surprised, obviously, how many people in the media don't see it that way. I think that's kind of obvious given how many legacy publications that there are out there that instead of just moving to perhaps online only are trying to, I'll use the Washington Post as an example. I don't know if I'm mispronouncing this person's name. I know most people in this room are in the New Media Exchange. So Catherine Xerxes, how do they pronounce it?
I am not sure.
Okay. Cirque sent out this fantastic piece about the Washington Post that everyone should read if you're on the New Media Exchange, or if you're not, email me and I'm happy to send it to you, about ways that the Washington Post could redesign itself. And one of the cool things that the person who published this article mentioned was that maybe the grand idea is that instead of printing the Washington Post, because printing costs are very expensive, they could just give out free Kindles if you subscribe to the Washington Post, because it would be cheaper to give everyone a free Kindle than it would be to publish the Washington Post and send it to all those homes, which just like blew my mind about how much cheaper it could be. And I hope it does yours in terms of publishing versus online, which is part of the reason why I think it is going to move to completely to the online space in the future. That's a picture of Red Alert. Shameless self-plug from Eric Telford.
Is that working? No.
Yeah, it did. One thing we didn't try to do was reinvent the wheel. What I think that Heritage did a great job with the piece that you just showed is they went to BuzzFeed. They went to where the people already were. There's lots of people on BuzzFeed. So versus trying to make something they thought was really good content go viral at Heritage, whereas maybe not so many young people, no offense, read Heritage, they went to BuzzFeed instead. And obviously it did really well because that's where the younger people are. And that's sort of what we tried to do with Red Alert Politics. Instead of making our own social media, which I think conservatives often try to do, is try to be like, I've got an idea. Twitter's so liberal, and Tumblr's so liberal, and Reddit is so liberal. So we're going to start our own social media network instead. And that is never successful, because then you're only going to attract like the zealots of the conservative movement versus going where everyone already is and then trying to get as many of our people on there instead of trying to create something new and then trying to build up all kinds of support for it. And that was something that we focused very heavily on. Also, along the same exact lines, it was that we also didn't try to cover national news that everyone else was covering from the same exact angle, in the sense that, like, if it's a news story that is all going to have the same, all going to come out the same about something that happens with energy or Obama or whatever, there's like not really a slant to it, we will share content from other center-right publications or even just national publications like the New York Times, versus trying to write that story ourselves and waste our time basically writing what these other national publications who have hundreds of reporters are sitting there writing. Instead, we spend our time doing something fun or interesting that maybe you didn't know about already in the news that week. Which goes to this is the GIF for my comment about the social media partially, is that's what's going to happen if you try to reinvent the wheel and create something and force the people to go there versus using the already popular and existing methods. They're going to reject it. More cats. And that is something that's been very successful for Red Alert. I would say that about 40% of our traffic comes from Twitter and comes from Facebook. And of the Facebook traffic, about 40% of that is Facebook mobile. And that's the other piece of this puzzle here, is it's not just online, it's so many people are using mobile. And making sure that your content also looks good on mobile. Because think about how many people in this room right now are reading things on their phone, on Twitter, or looking at websites on their phone. And that's also very, very important. There you go. Political entertainment, which I like to call polititainment for short. We, as many of you probably know, recently acquired Yays and Nays from our sister publication, The Washington Examiner. When Yays and Nays was going to be one of the things that were cut in their redesign, we said, hey, it makes more sense to bring on Yays and Nays to Red Alert because we do a lot of polititainment, and that's essentially what Yays does, but it's already a very credible brand that's established and that people read for that reason. And it's definitely the more like straight news, straight down the aisle part of Red Alert. But before that, we were already doing political entertainment. The way we like to think about it is that's the appetizer so that they'll stay for the red meat. And I literally mean that, because a lot of times we'll see people, again, who might be apathetic or might not otherwise care about politics, but then there's a story about, Bradley Cooper and, meeting with Joe Biden to talk about mental health because of Silver Linings Playbook, and we'll post something about that, and all of a sudden people are reading about it, and now they're reading about mental health. And that is the sort of thing that we try to do is, reel them in. And even if it's a political entertainment piece, we try to put some facts and statistics that sort of lean our way in the piece. And then next thing they know, they've picked up these facts and they didn't even know it when they were reading an entertaining piece. 2 is that we're a publication by young conservatives for young conservatives. I think that's also been very helpful in making our content go viral and working for us, is that we found a niche that needed to be filled, and that was better than doing what other people were already doing and trying to compete with other places that were already very successful at that. For instance, we do things on the college campuses. Obviously, we're for young conservatives, but we don't spend a ton of time investigating. I think some of the things on the college campuses and the way that campus reform spends a lot of time investigating the waste and whatever else happens on the college campuses. We kind of let them do that because they're very good at that. And again, we focus on generally bringing news to people who are ages 18 to 29 and widen that up because no one was doing that on the right at all. And then, oh no, the picture isn't showing. Darn it.
Oh.
It's okay. It's okay. I can tell you who was in it. It's fine. When I said breaking down GOP stereotypes, it was a picture of the Red Alert staff, which we're adding 2 men, actually, in 2 positions we're hiring for right now. Everyone who's applied has been men. But everyone who works at Red Alert is a woman currently, which is super funny, because when people on the left try to say, oh, the GOP has a war on women, then I just send them a picture of our staff and say, haha, that's so funny. Back to them. And also, people have this idea that the GOP is just stuffy, old, white men. Well, that's not true, because there's a bunch of women. Obviously looking at me, that breaks down the everyone in the GOP is necessarily white and is racist and is out to get minorities. And so it's been really helpful in that sense because we're young, there's a lot of women who work there, there's some minorities who work there, and that's a big part of how we're just blowing people's minds who have maybe had experiences with the Republican Party that are younger, I think, and then said this isn't the party for me, and showing them that it's the party for everybody. So sorry, that was my spiel to make up for theirs.
Thank you. I have a couple more questions, and if you just want to jump in with any kind of comment, that's fine as well. But Justin, I was going to ask you. So I know that the congressman uses several different social media platforms. He's got Instagram, he's got Twitter, Facebook. Does he have a Tumblr?
No.
Okay, but maybe you could talk a little bit about how you decide what to use on the various platforms, and how he's personal on each one.
Yeah, that's So for us, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys are probably curators yourselves. I consider myself to be the chief curator of online media. So the point of that title is that you're trying to package content for your audience, and so a lot of the same content will be across the platform, but at different times of the day, sometimes shaped and colored a little bit differently. So that's really what we do. I mean, Instagram is Instagram. I mean, you're not putting out policy pieces and ideas and trying to create discourse. It's showing a unique perspective. Like Congressman walking through the tunnels of the Capitol as he's going to go vote. That's something you can't get anywhere else. You just can't. You can't go to Reuters. You can't go to Agence Free Press and look at their photography. You can't go to Red Alert. You can't go to The Hill. You'll never get to see it. You got to go to us. So it's exclusive content. So we use Instagram all the time to provide exclusive content. Congressman's out in the district. There's a photo from last week. He's eating a Indian tortilla. It's just like him smiling. He's on the Indian reservation. He represents a lot of Native Americans in reservations. It's like you can't go anywhere else to get that. So we try and provide exclusive content to those places, and we try and do it in a way that those people are used to seeing. Throwback Thursday. If I wouldn't just put Throwback Thursdays up on Twitter, because Throwback Thursdays came from Instagram, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
I think it did, and I've seen actually a lot of
Yeah.
I've seen several members of Congress doing that lately, and I've been super impressed. I'm like, these guys are getting it. They're like, finally getting it.
The most, at least for us, the most famous one was the mustache photo of him from 1980. Big wire frame glasses and mustache. And since then, we've seen some other mustaches pop up.
Can we just call it a porn stash?
It's a porn star.
I don't know if I don't think I can do that.
I don't think I can say
background.
that.
Come
It's my
on.
phone background. It's like my screensaver on my phone.
Well, Senator Bob Corker tweeted about his mustache a few weeks afterwards. He saw it, and they're like, well, that's super cool. Well, if Darrell Issa can do it, Bob Corker can do it, well, then other members can do it too. And
Tom Gilburn's beard has a Twitter handle.
Does it really?
Yeah, it does. It tweets out a lot. It has a French fry stuck in it, and there's mustard on me now, and it's an awesome Twitter handle. Beards are viral. Mustaches are viral.
I mean, it's things
There you
like
go.
that, though, like what ICE is doing, but also one of my favorite examples lately is Congressman Trey Radel. He
Yeah.
runs his own Twitter, his own Instagram. He has a Vine. I mean, he is just like doing his own thing, being himself, and I don't even know what his politics are. I just really like him as a person. And so that's the kind of thing. And you can do that not even just working for a politician, but like, we try to do things like that for the president of Heritage, Jim DeMint. Try to get him, we'll have background pictures of him getting ready to go on Meet the Press or, behind the scenes at one of our town halls. So those are just things to consider. And I know sometimes it's hard to get the leaders of your organizations or your publications to do things like that, but it's worth showing them examples of success to get them convinced to do it.
If you, and I'm sure everyone in this room is very familiar with the exit polls from 2012, and one of the most consistent responses people gave about Mitt Romney is, I liked what he had to say, I thought his policies were good, but I just didn't feel like I could trust him. And this is a problem that conservatives and Republicans have had for many years now. We sort of left the culture behind because it was so distasteful, and in the process we left it to people who were idiots and really, weren't responsible with the culture. And now we have what we have, right? What Rush calls low information voters, that et cetera, et cetera. But I think what we need to get back to, and this is what Justin was talking about with, with the mustache pictures, and it's personality, like people want a piece of you, so no matter what you do, you can't just get on Twitter and just promote your stuff. You got to be personal on Twitter sometimes. You can tune into my Twitter, Kira Ann, AYN Davis, on a Friday night, and guaranteed 9 times out of 10 I'm talking about booze, or
So you're a boozy stay-at-home mom.
right. Or the other day, my daughter came in and was screaming about some accident she had outside. She's 6, and I go outside. Turns out the accident was drawing on the neighbor's car with a rock, and she threw a whole scene. It was a scene. It was like a rainbow and picked girls with curly hair and dogs and flowers. And I, tweeted that out immediately. It just went everywhere. I put it on my fan page on Facebook. People like to know that you're a real person. I think that our politicians could benefit from that too as well. I know it's difficult because you have to keep up such you just have to be so careful and tread so lightly when it comes to being in the public eye as a politician. But there's got to be a way to make conservatism more personal to people so that they like you. I mean, don't you have friends who say to you, oh, you're the one good Republican, or you're the one nice conservative. Everybody else is crappy, but you're, it's like, at what point is like, do you add up all the math and think, maybe I'm wrong about the perception, but there is this perception. So your personal life counts. If you're not comfortable being personal in the public space, then maybe the public space isn't for you.
I think that's also true. I definitely would say that some of my tweets that have done the best have been making fun of myself for the many mishaps that happen in Francesca's life. I don't know why all those happen. But something I wanted to note that happened today, and I noticed a lot of conservatives tweeting about this, so I wanted to address it, is that, okay, Barack Obama at the end of this week is going on a higher education tour to talk about, the cost of college. I don't know how many people knew that. That's where he's going to be on Thursday and Friday, which I actually think is fantastic. I'm so glad that he's doing that for all the tours that he's went on. It's so great that one of them is going to be about the skyrocketing cost of higher education. But the way that the White House described this bus tour was that it was going to be fun and informational. And there were a lot of people on Twitter who happened to be center right who were like, oh, okay, that's stupid, and like making fun of the whole entire bus tour, which is the wrong way to go about it. That is exactly how you reel young people in. If you're going to go across the country, is you make it informational, but also fun. And when we do that kind of stuff, it really shows that like conservatives like don't get it. That is how Obama won the last election, is by making things fun and informational. And so that's why it's so important to have fun with it and to be personal too.
Real quickly, I want to draw it back. You can show your thing, but I wanted to draw it back to a little bit more technical.
But what?
Sean Hackbarth is gonna kill me for this.
We will. We're gonna show this. Something I want you guys to think about.
My point right now.
Something I wanted to ask you guys, as far as I know we're getting a little bit off, but the question is, are there technical factors that relate to the a post going viral or a post getting a lot of shares? Things like timing, how often are you taking audience feedback? Are you using inflammatory terms? Are you just being yourself? I mean, because I know for us, we're really taking a more technical approach lately as far as how we are wording our posts on Facebook. We're really looking at really digging down into the analytics and finding out what's working that way. And we're seeing a lot more success now that we're getting more technical about it rather than, throwing it out there and being like, this is awesome. So I'm just wondering for you guys, if you've seen the more technical side of things contribute to your success in something going all out there.
So I'm sorry to completely take that high-minded question and take it to the lowest common denominator, which are congressmen who look like Batman. So just this is not an answer to your question. This is an answer to your previous question about Justin's boss.
Okay.
We did a congressman who looks like Batman, right? GIFs of them turning into Batman. It was silly. It was absurd. We were bored. Sean Hackbarth put us on blast a lot on Twitter and Facebook for this.
What's the hashtag?
What was that?
What's the hashtag?
For this?
No, for what I do.
I don't know.
BuzzFeed is bad for America.
There you go. All right.
And I
So,
stand behind that.
look at us. We're still friends. This is just, I wouldn't have showed this to you guys except for you brought up his boss. Because here is the way to respond to something like this, right? Darrell Issa says, Darrell Issa was one of them, and he says, are you sure it's not me? And he makes this GIF and tweets it out at the reporter from the House Oversight website. Like this GIF is hosted on the House Oversight website. This GIF right now of some low-life reporter turning into Batman. What does this prove? Certainly not that I'm awesome, and the piece did not that well in traffic. But what it does prove is that Issa gets one very important thing about social is that it's a two-way conversation, right? Like a lot of members saw this, believe me, and I know and I track who interacts with us and who doesn't. The best thing I would argue that Issa does is interact with the people online. Yeah. And he's not above it, right? Like this is a silly, like silly thing to do. And he's not above doing these silly, fun things because that's kind of what the internet is all about. The internet is about what you ate for lunch. And, your dumb kid drawing on a card. Your kid's wonderful, I'm sorry. A photo of their scene would have been awesome. The internet loves that. Let's all Instagram our food together. I mean, it's weird, it's interesting, it's new, it's different, and, this is an example of a member of Congress just totally getting it. And so to answer your question, perhaps, from my perspective, is the best thing Issa does is interact. And he realizes it's a two-way conversation. Whereas media used to be a one-way conversation. It was a reporter talking to you and telling you what you need to know. But now tables have totally flipped. And it's, not flipped, but it's been opened to the other side, right? And it's no longer 3 nightly news broadcasts with 3, news anchor gods telling you what you want. And it's been disseminated down to an actual conversation, which I think is really exciting, and I think that as soon as you grasp that and manage it, you're not above doing the silly things the internet likes you doing, then you'll really see a lot of effectiveness there. How many Twitter followers you guys got?
Almost 112,000.
That's massive. I mean, that's pretty gigantic for a member of Congress.
4th most followed member of Congress behind the Speaker, Leader, Michelle Bachmann, and Paul Ryan. So, 5th.
Yeah. So I mean, Just
Do you want me to
take
answer your
word for
question?
it.
Yes, I want quickly answer the question. I want to leave time for questions from the
Yeah.
audience. So I actually have a lot of questions, but I'm gonna cut myself short so I can get to theirs. But yeah, you go ahead and answer my question, and then.
So one of the worst things I see people doing is like on election night or during the State of the Union or during the presidential debates, tweeting about things that really have nothing to do with what's going on in the news at that time point. And it's fine to do that. That's totally fine. But you can't make that like the one time or the second and only time that you're tweeting about, for instance, a story that you did that you want to get attention, because that is going to completely get drowned out in all of the tweets making fun of what's going on or complaining about what's going on. Now, on the other hand, and I know that Heritage does a really great job with this as well, if what you're tweeting about is relevant to what's happening, whereas if Obama just talked about how he wants to raise the minimum wage and you're tweeting a link back to a study that you guys did about, or a study that you found about how, that would be a terrible idea and this is why, then that is relevant and it makes sense at that time. It's very timely to tweet something like that. But constantly I see it the other way around. Not so much rapid response, which is what people should be doing, and more of tweeting about literally something that has nothing to do with what's going on, and then being like, why didn't anyone read my story? And that is bad. So I do think that timing has a lot to do with it. It's helpful if you have something that you want to get around and people to read, obviously to post it top of the morning when people are reading news versus, I posted this at 5:30. I don't understand why people who were driving in their cars on the way home from work didn't whip out their phone and read my story on their Twitter, which, I bet there are probably a lot of people in here who probably do that when they're stuck in traffic on the way home. But there's a lot of people who probably aren't, after they leave the office at 5 o'clock, reading the news per se. And so that's something to keep in mind if you really want to get a lot of traffic to it.
Yeah, just I'll add to that, and then I'm going to open it to questions. Just something that I do on a regular basis. Like when I get up in the morning and I start sending out tweets for Heritage, I'm always looking at what's trending on Twitter. And this morning, Ted Cruz happened to be trending, so I was like, let me pull up some Ted Cruz stuff and just tweet it. Just because I'm always looking, like at night when I'm watching TV, if I Academy Award for Zero Dark 30, and I was tweeting out our stuff about Zero Dark 30, and it got crazy, like thousands and thousands of clicks just from one tweet because it happened while she was up there. Yeah. So, it's the culture, so pay attention. Okay, questions? I got more if you guys don't.
Back.
Yes. A question for Benny here.
Yes, Randall.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. According to Bloomberg Business Week, your top advertiser in 2011 was General Electric. How have you guys built a platform that attracted normal Sunday morning advertisers for BuzzFeed? How are you guys reaching those kinds of people to want to advertise for BuzzFeed?
Right. So advertising forward-thinking market, as should be news, media, and technology. I would go back to the first point that this is where the people are. So the advertisers must move there. And the advertisers have to move there. They've realized that banner ads, who here works for a website or has a website associated with you? And regularly manages these little things. How many click-throughs do banner ads get? None? What percentage of zero do we decide they're not zero? It's zero. That was what I would, that was old school marketing trying to say, a web page is just a newspaper page, and we just buy some space on it, and people will click on it. You don't need metrics or BuzzFeed to tell you that doesn't work. It just didn't. So BuzzFeed has something called sponsored content that is curated by a team of BuzzFeed editors that have moved into a marketing capacity for us, and that content is, as we've discussed, far more interactive. I would argue far more shareable. We had Virgin Mobile did a campaign that had 2.1 million shares, on a social network. That's off the charts for advertising. So as much as you have to look at the internet changing everything, you have to look at the internet changing everything, including the way that you advertise and speak to people. And that whatever message you're trying to send, you'd be well advised to take that route and say, hey, this internet thing has changed everything. We need to talk to people the way they're being spoken to in this medium.
Can you characterize what the Virgin Mobile campaign was like?
It had very little to do with virginity. It had a lot to do
with mobile virginity.
With, I believe there
You're
was
just
one
never
about
gonna
like
roll us back.
they took their new cell phone because they were breaking into the carrier market. They took their new cell phone and they had really awesome things filmed with it. So they sent it all around, all these adventures around the world, and they filmed things with their cell phone, and then they made GIFs of it. And so like, here are the 17 most badass GIFs that are filmed from this new phone that you can get only on our carrier. Something like that. But I'm not on the ads team, so I can't actually characterize it, but that was what it was like. That's kind of an example of what they would like to post. GE does the same.
To get it out there. And have you seen people who've done it? And does anyone have examples of that?
I have one. I do too,
Yeah, I was going to say, I know you're one of them. So I don't know if you want to say a couple words about that or how you did that. Or.
Well, it just goes back to telling your story. To whatever you do it passionately. And we were talking earlier, there is no substitute for a face-to-face meeting. Like, put some money up front, even if I know that times are tough and you're not sponsored by any big blogs or organizations, put some money up. And go to a blogger conference, go to CPAC, go somewhere where other conservatives, Republicans, or just regular bloggers are, and meet them. Every opportunity I've ever had to be shared is because somebody has seen me and most likely had drinks with me
we were just talking
or
about
had
how
a meal.
I met her in Arizona earlier this year, and we had never met before. But then once we met and started talking, I realized, like, oh wow, we have a lot in common. Like, she has a lot of good stuff for heritage, and so now all the time I think, oh, Kira would be good for that. So yeah, I do think that.
Yeah, there's no replacement for just personal interaction. People are more likely to share your stuff. A lot of people, the great thing about the internet, I think, is that you don't have to be working for like a huge organization, a big, you don't have to have the New York Times behind your name. Yeah. You just have to have something interesting, and people will read it. They don't, people have their favorite sites, but they're not, so loyal that they won't go anywhere else. If you have something interesting, people will read it or watch it.
And people, I would say, are looking for you. I mean, a place like Heritage, we're looking for people who are conservative bloggers that want to help spread our research. So get in touch with them. Get in touch with people. For example, like people will email me randomly sometimes and just say like, oh hey, I work here, I blog here. I just wanted to touch base, and like, thank you. Because I wouldn't have found you otherwise. So I think people discount just sending that email, making that phone call, as a way to get it out there, because there's a lot of people that I've had random requests like, hey, would you mind tweeting this from this small website? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And so that works. Do we have other questions? Yes.
To that last point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well. Just real, like BuzzFeed, more than half the traffic comes from mobile, and that we call that side door traffic because they're coming in from social networks. So please don't discount social networks and making things that are curated, for Twitter and Facebook. We don't have close to enough time to talk about this, but not most, but at least half of it comes in not from our front page. So people are stumbling on us through their social networks and friends sharing us. And making content that curates like that is really valuable, because that's where the universe online lives, in these giant planets called Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google, and that's what that's their home pages, is their social networks. So
I had a small response to that too. Two quick examples on that front. When Red Alert started, obviously, we didn't have any Twitter followers. And then at the end of the first year, we had something like 28,000 Twitter followers. And a lot of that came from just having really good content that other people wanted to share. Obviously, having really good people who followed me and other people at Red Alert who were willing to retweet that content and get it out there and share was very helpful as well. But on a side note, I know that you're like, well, that's an organization and people want to follow a news organization. So I'm going to call my husband out right now, who gained 10,000 Twitter followers in like 2 months, because he said, I want to have a lot of Twitter followers in order to make my organization's content be able to go viral more easily. So he spent, not absurd amounts of time on Twitter, but he spent a decent amount of time on Twitter, tweeting funny things that weren't always about work and news stories. Like he would here's a picture of a funny cat, and then there was like tons of retweets, and he'd get all these followers, and I'd be like, really? It's not even that cool looking of a cat, and he'd be like, here's a nice baby giraffe, and I'm like, it's not even a cool baby giraffe, but people would retweet that, and then all of a sudden, literally, he amassed like 10,000 followers in about 2 months, and it blew my mind, because then he was like, oh, do you want me to follow Friday you? I'm like, I don't need you to follow Friday Me, you know, like, but every time he would tweet a link to Red Alert or a link to his organization, the Franklin Center, you mean, like, then it would get like hundreds of thousands of views. And that's something that he did with zero money, zero resources from any outside organization, and literally did it, I think it was like 2 months, wasn't it? It was a very short amount of time.
Yeah, because the left sort of just trolls our sites and looks for things to complain about, or if something doesn't fit into that narrative, they'll shoehorn it in. You know, I've talked to people who will, you know, post a Filner, you know, picture, and instead of the Filner article, it's, you know, they get retweeted as proof that Republicans don't care about sexual harassment. They're making fun of this. Or if it's a photo of a cat wearing a hat, it's Republicans support animal cruelty by putting cats in hats. How do you guys sort of respond to, you know, what is always going to be that sort of attack on the left?
Laugh.
You can't really do
laugh at
anything.
them.
You just have to ignore it.
I ridicule. I choose ridicule as a tool. I think it's very effective.
Personally, organizationally, sort of different, but
yeah.
Well,
No,
from the organizational standpoint, it becomes a problem because then they get retweeted as this group is making fun of Obama, you know, mask on a rodeo clown, and that becomes the narrative of that group in that Twitter, and that's what goes viral, not, you know, anything
well,
else they do.
I'm from L.A. area, Hollywood, and I actually am an actor by trade. And you know what we say in the biz, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Somebody is picking up your stuff. And, I mean, the trolls get annoying, but somebody is... I mean, I went to a protest rally the other day, and the rally had no buzz. It was like a rage against the media. It had no buzz. And then Wonket said, printed something, we're going to send the Purple Slushy Brigade, and all of a sudden, all these people were there. And Wonket was making fun of us. You know, and they hate Jim Hoff, Gateway Pundit, and he was going to be there, and so they were saying all kinds of trashy stuff about him. But there's no such thing as bad publicity. I mean, embrace it. People are going to hate. Look, listen,
Haters
there's
gonna
no
hate.
more hated creature in politics than a black conservative. People are going to hate on you. You can either ignore it or you can take that and twist it to your advantage. And like I say, I like to ridicule people. I don't on Twitter anymore. You won't even see me trying to make arguments anymore. I will just go straight for the jugular. You know, I'm not going to convince you of, you know, that I'm right, and I am right. But I'm not going to convince you of that. I might as well just make fun of you because you're a complete dummy.
I think,
yeah. Classy advice from
I think that there are different approaches. I don't think that's everyone's. I mean, that's
no, it's certainly not
personality
heritage.
thing.
Would never.
No. I mean, but I mean, like, Kira's got the personality for that. You know, it's the Andrew Breitbart style retweet.
Yeah.
You know, he does that, and that is
Did
for some
that.
people. I don't think that's for everyone. I think there's different approaches for organizations versus for people. But that is a problem that I don't necessarily have the answer to. I want to...
Ericka, could you click a few times on that, just real fast? Can you click the mouse a few times? Just to your point about cats and hats. So, the question is comparing these poor innocent cats to these politicians, is that cruelty?
It is.
That is, I think, a kind of a meta question for this entire panel. What are we doing if we let ourselves go to these places?
Oh my God.
It's very insensitive.
The poor cats.
I can't answer this question.
Humor is good. I think humor is self-deprecating humor is always good. Well, you guys, there's so much that this conversation could veer off onto. Like, I already have ideas in my head, but unfortunately we only have an hour. So I'm sure the panelists will be around for a couple minutes. If you want to stick around, chat, ask some questions. I'm happy to answer questions. Feel free to do that. Did anyone have any announcements for the good of the order that they wanted to make to the group? Wow, that's a first. All right. Well, thanks for coming. Enter our Instagram campaign, Stop Obamacare.
Or go enter. Here's my idea. Go
video
enter the
contest.
video contest.
I sent that to you.
And just make it like the opposite. Go enter. My son's
And big
11
picture-
and he
What
makes
video
movies.
contest
I'm
is this?
putting him in.
Okay,
that.
so
Why Obamacare
the Young
sucks.
Invincibles and
Thanks,
some other group
everybody.
Yeah.
are doing Enroll America, I think, are doing like a video contest to try and